Hi, welcome everyone here at the parent meeting for the youth registration, team registration. There are many different types of youth and parents here and coaches for many different sports that your kids are going to be playing this year, and I'm grateful that you're here. I'm going to be taking about 10 minutes and discussing youth sports concussion awareness. My name is Sasha Welker. I've been a mountain biking coach for about 5 years, taking concussion training every year. I hope before this started, before our workshop started, that you took the chance to get to know your neighbor and their youth and what team they're playing, what sport they're playing this year. So let's jump right in. What is a concussion? A lot of things, you may have heard it by different names. Getting your bell rung, seeing stars. Kids will say, I only blacked out for a second. I feel fine, I'm okay. Don't make a big deal about it, I only hit my head, it's just a headache. But in reality, a concussion is a sharp blow to the head causing bruising or injury to the brain. I'm going to show a video that's going to give you a better appreciation about the damage that's caused during a concussion. It goes into a little bit of detail, but it's just so you can appreciate what actually happens during the concussion so you don't so easily brush it off. And this damage can occur inside a helmet even during a minor injury or during a fall. So here's the video. I'm going to start it in the middle and cut it off before the ending.
Lying in its bony shell and washed by protective fluid, the brain is also the most fragile organ in the body, with the same texture and consistency as gelatin. Within the brain are over 100 billion nerve cells, called neurons, sending electrical and chemical signals to and from the body. Each neuron has a cell body, a long nerve fiber called an axon, and projections of the cell body called dendrites. Dendrites extend out from the cell body to receive messages from other nerve cells. Axons in the brain connect neurons with each other, which in turn provide extensive interconnections with other brain areas. Because the brain and its nerve cells are so fragile, sudden, rapid movements of the head can cause injuries. During one such injury, called coup contre coup or acceleration-deceleration injury, the brain bounces back and forth against the bony interior wall of the skull. In high-speed coup contre coup injuries, the impact may be violent enough to cause swelling and bruising of the brain tissue, called a contusion. However, in cases involving low-speed coup contre coup injuries, the resulting damage may not be visible to the naked eye. As the brain moves back and forth within the skull, areas of varying density in the brain slide over each other at different speeds. Axons crossing these junctions experience tremendous shearing forces, causing them to stretch and tear from the cell body. This event is called axonal shearing, or diffuse axonal injury. Brain damage can continue to occur for hours or days after the initial injury. Damage to the axons can lead to a breakdown of communication among neurons in the brain. The torn axons quickly degenerate, releasing toxic levels of chemicals called neurotransmitters into the extracellular space. In turn, many of the surrounding neurons begin to die over the next 24 to 48 hours, worsening the initial effects of the injury. Mild to moderate.
Okay, so are there any questions that may have stood out during that video? Something that stood out to me is that as those neurons will die, that the effects can continue for hours or days after the injury. So a major concussion can be detected by a CT or MRI, but a minor one is only by symptoms and comparison to pre-concussed condition. So that's the importance of baseline testing. Has anyone had any experience, knowledge, or knows what baseline testing is? That's perfect. Concussion baseline testing is done in a medical office. It's a kind of like a computer video game where the doctor will record the results. It's like a concentration game, and then save them. So if you go into that same doctor after you get a concussion, they'll have you take the same test, and then they can see how delayed your reaction time is, and that will help them make the assessment and diagnosis of a concussion. Now, since our workshop is focused on youth sports, let's hear some ideas of how youth ages 10 to 19 can get concussions. Those are great. Almost every sport, everyone here in this room has a risk of getting a concussion, and chances are there'll be many of you that will get a concussion this season. So it's nothing to be alarmed of, just to be aware of. So what are the symptoms of concussion? I want you to just call them out, and as they're called out, I'm going to uncover them here. That's great. Looks like we got all of them. Headache, nausea, difficulty concentrating, brain fog, agitation, anxiety, sadness, confusion, feeling tired or sleepiness, dizziness, balance issues, sensitivity to light and sound, blurred vision, slowed reaction time, and ability to think. So if you observe any of these symptoms or suspect a concussion, it is so important that you pull the youth from the sport and get them to rest and sit out. That is probably going to be the hardest thing to do as an athlete or coach, but it's very important. So how do you treat a concussion? Let your brain rest and heal. Remember the video we watched, visualizing the dead and dying neurons. What can you do to get the damage to stop and get the cells to begin to grow back? Let your brain rest and heal. But since we're dealing with youth, their lives are focused on their phones, social media connections, online school and games, movies, and other electronic devices. And you need to tell them, let your brain rest and heal. So this means no electronics or even reading books for 24 to 48 hours. And you will not be the popular one. But that's okay. You are the one that's helping their brain to heal. Now, if you suspect that it's a more serious concussion or you're not quite sure, it is a great idea to get them checked by a medical professional. There's no shame in doing that whatsoever, even if they just have one of those symptoms on that list we talked about. Now, I want to break into groups of 2 to 3 people and spend a few minutes role-playing how to assess and treat a concussion. I want you to pick one person to be the victim, one person to be the parent, and one person to be the medical professional and coach. So go ahead and do that. We'll take just a couple minutes to do that. Pretend the victim person has had the concussion, and what is the parent going to tell them? And if you were the coach, what would you say? Or if you were the doctor, what would you do? And then, as the athlete who has the concussion, then what would be your response to the advice you're receiving? Great job. Thank you everyone for participating and coming tonight. I hope you all learned something that you'll be able to take home. In review, just don't be overly anxious for them to jump back into the game. Remember, let's repeat together. Let the brain rest and heal. Good job. All right, the sooner you heal, the less long-term effects you're going to have. So save your brain today, because chances are you will need it tomorrow. This is my website. Go ahead and feel free to jot that down. And I have this PowerPoint there. I'm going to have that video there. I have a lot of other concussion symptoms, treatments, a lot of really good resources. So that's saveyourbrain.org. And thank you everyone for coming. If you have any questions, go ahead and come on up afterwards, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks.